Hi traders, welcome to this week ahead analysis video with me, John Kibler, head currency analyst here at Blueberry Markets. I'm going to take you through what's to come for this week, bit of an interesting week in the markets and some key charts to watch. So we've got a lot of euro data this week, a lot of dollar data as well, mainly being the PMI flash services as well as flash manufacturing out of obviously Europe, US and the UK. One of the most important things though will be coming on Friday at 3:05 p.m. You can see here British Standard Time. Fed Chair Powell speaks, and it's actually the Jackson Hole Symposium this week. So there'll be lots of speeches from Federal Reserve members. But Federal Reserve Chairman Powell speaking is going to be something that market participants are really going to be keeping their eyes on. Is Federal Reserve Chairman Powell going to give more insights into what could happen with the interest rates? At last year's, he did discuss the potential for interest rates to come in a lot higher. So the markets could be waiting to see this week if Federal Reserve Chairman Powell does talk about whether or not they are done with hiking rates or whether they will need to hike rates even further. Some other data coming out this week as well, not listed primarily here on a economic calendar, but the risk tone will be definitely one to watch this week, as there's potential for China to actually cut rates going into this week, and the markets could interpret that as some slower growth and some potential risk off could continue. We did see a little bit of risk off coming into the end of last week, and that's going to be an interesting play to watch as well, considering the fact that the dollar yen price is around about that 145. The Bank of Japan is still very reluctant to intervene at the moment, so that risk tone play is going to be one to watch this week. I think if we do see a little bit more risk off in the markets, then the Bank of Japan have less reason to intervene. However, if we see a little bit more risk on, then that intervention is going to come more into question. So before we head over into any charts, let's take a look at the strength meter. We can see that the dollar, the strongest currency at the moment, the New Zealand dollar, the weakest. So looking for that Kiwi dollar potential continuation to the downside, especially if we do have that risk off tone continue. That risk off will definitely see the potential for investment into the US dollar. Now, that could be tricky going into this week. Obviously, we discussed the fact that there is the Jackson Hole Symposium. Now, going into such a risk event like that, we may see price just consolidate. I mean, the dollar index at the moment is at the 103 spot 50 handle. It's where we had previous resistance coming in and a little bit of support through there. But that is an area where we could see a little bit of downside coming in, perhaps into that 102 spot 70s. However, going into that risk event, I would typically suggest that the market could go a little bit more sideways. Now, if we do, however, get a bit of risk off coming into the markets, then the dollar could actually continue to appreciate, and we could see it maybe come up into the channel highs here, or even the next sort of high at 104.50 or 105s by the end of the week, depending on how that speech goes as well with the chairman of the Federal Reserve. So going to be an interesting week from a scale of the US dollar. We are looking to we can see there's some kind of buying and selling going on in and around that 103 spot 50, lots of wicks to the downside, wicks to the upside. So there's definitely some accumulation going on here. It's whether the market can break out in any kind of given direction. Going on to Euro US dollar, then we can see that we actually did break out of this small range that we discussed last week. We said that price was at support at the 1.0950, but it was pretty much within a trading range. What we did discuss is if price did give us a false breakout, Euro dollar could trade to the downside, and it did eventually, and it broke down and it made its way down into the 1.0850 levels. Now, obviously, we do have manufacturing PMI services PMI coming up for Europe as well. Depending on how those go, it could determine whether price comes back up into the 1.0950 or breaks down and heads towards this trend line support that has been put through here. Going on to cable then. Cable, really interesting market as well, just because from a weekly perspective, we're slowing down into that one spot 2650 area. This was an area that obviously acted as resistance in here and support in here. Price now just hovering around that level. We also have this longer term trend line running through here, acting as support. So a couple of technical levels here. From a technical point of view as well, we are technically trending to the upside. So it's whether that upward trend is going to continue now and see price perhaps come back into that one spot 3. Again, I think this is going to be determined by that US dollar going into this week. A break below one spot 2650 could see price come more towards the one spot 2375. Going on to dollar yen then, so this is what I was talking about in terms of the US dollar and the Japanese yen, with the fact that price is at the 145 handle, or just slightly above the 145 actually, just closing below the 145 spot 50 last week. Now, like I said, Bank of Japan haven't intervened yet, whether they're waiting to see if there's any development this week in regards to risk tone, because we know when the market moves into risk off, the yen can definitely benefit from the back of that, and there's a potential for yen to strengthen. That could then push and drive prices lower, perhaps back into this trend line support or even the 140 spot 50. I think if we were to climb above that and we headed towards this channel high, anywhere towards the 149 spot 50 and above, I think that's when we're going to have to really consider what the Bank of Japan are going to do, as obviously this was an area where we intervened in the past. So are we going to get there again, or are the Bank of Japan going to intervene before that? Does the chatter of interventions just help price move lower? Because that's pretty much what we had last time. We had chatter at 145, the Bank of Japan could intervene. Market hit that, we sold off. We're not really seeing that chatter now. So does price continue up in the short term? If we do see the chatter again, could we see price maybe work within this bullish channel? That's also something to consider going into this week. I hope you enjoyed all this video content. If you did, leave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the YouTube channel to see some more Forex trading content. And I'll catch you in the next video.